Revitalization Committee in Dillon. Before we start, I want y'all to introduce yourself. I was going to do it, Glenn says it's better to let y'all do it real quick so we know who the faces are.
Red Tompkins, Ace Hardware on Main Street.
I'm Steve Johnson.
Steve's a business owner here in Dillon. He's got about 3 buildings off Main Street, so he has a stake in Main Street, and that's why he's here.
Stephanie Mitchell, I bought the old Young World and it's now GG's and Doc's.
Maggie Riles, I run this place. Not you don't like that at all. I'm here to help y'all do whatever you need to do.
Betsy's with the Dillon Herald. She's here recording.
I'm Jackie Thomas from Thomas Floors and Gifts down on North 9.
Everybody knows who I am.
Not everybody.
I don't.
He's our veterinarian.
I'm Wanda Wallace Self, and I am a CDBG grant writer and administrator, private consultant with Latham Consulting Corporation.
I'm Howard Nettles. I'm the operations and marketing director for Genesis Healthcare.
And I'm Dillon Wagner, city manager.
Outside Davis Mayor, also runs benefit designs here in Dillon. Downtown revitalization, Glenn will tell you, has been my issue ever since I've really come into office. I haven't done much about it other than the last 12 months, started looking at things. The hurricane drove us back, set us back some, so we're now kicking this off. When I first came on, or probably not a year before I first came on, I looked at Main Street. And what I remember most right down from my office was a building beside the theater that was halfway down and condemned. And I said, we can't have a building down right off of our historic theater and not do anything about it. So we did. We've had somewhat of a public-private partnership with a local citizen and got Lockerbie Court, as you see today. But prior to that, I think, right beside Rhett's building at Ace Hardware, we had a building down there coming. It was the old Hagman's 5 and 10 dime store. And it was it condemned?
I think so.
If it weren't, it was almost to be condemned. So again, right on Main Street, I worked with Rhett, with his business, did something that helped the city, helped him, another partnership, and you can see what that did today. It's a very attractive site, and it's definitely enhanced the commerce on Main Street, as he has one of the best businesses on Main Street. Presently, we got 2 condemned buildings on Main Street. One beside the old Evans Pharmacy that we just had to tack up so it wouldn't fall to the ground or fall on anybody. And I almost forgot the building beside the Council on Aging is condemned on the other side of Mount, the east side of Mount. So it's time to try to stop the bleeding, what I told Rotary Club the other day. You can't stop the bleeding or do anything on Main Street if you don't have a downtown revitalization committee. You just can't. There was one years ago. I think it's somewhat defunct now, y'all. If it is, it's not very active anymore, so we're starting a new one. We try to contact most of those members that were on the old one. If I haven't, I'm going to still do it and invite them to come over. Tonight, I just really wanted to get Wanda here to speak about the grants program, what we're going to do going forward. And I'm telling you, what I'm going to do my best as the mayor to empower this committee. It all has to go through council, but I want this committee to drive Main Street and put your plans down and what you guys see what needs to be done on Main Street to do it. Let me mention Howard here a second. Y'all probably don't know him. I went to college with him. He's out of Darlington. If you don't come into Dillon, if you aren't from here, you really kind of forget how you feel about it the first time. Howard helped with Hartsville on their Main Street revitalization. So I wanted at least one pair of eyes here in Dillon that doesn't really know Dillon very well. And I hope you're honest about it, and I'm sure you will be, and straightforward. And that's part of the reason for having you, somebody here that's not from here, if y'all are curious to know about that. I've been to Hartsville, I don't know how many times. I always use that as a kind of a measuring gauge. It really isn't fair. I've been to Mullins, Marion, everywhere I go. Hey, Roger, come on in. I look at Main Street, Huntsville, Florence. About 2 months ago, Glenn and I went to Florence and met with their Main Street coordinator. His name's Ray Reich. And he gave us their set of plans. He was very nice about it. Printed the copies off, sent them to me, Glenn, and I might have sent them to Benny Generite. Benny should be here in a little bit. But I'll never, what he told us made a lot of sense, and I was happy to hear it. He said, y'all can do in Dillon what we're doing in Florence. It'll work for a town of 5,000, it'll work for a town of 50,000. So we got their plans. It weren't that much to read. I'm going to print them off and get to you guys. We're going to modify that, but I don't really want to reinvent the wheel. Would you say? No. We don't. They've done the work. It's real self-explanatory. It makes sense. They put money behind it. Let me tell you a little bit about the money. You can't do much without it. Okay, we got the facade grant program, and we're going to up the facade grant money to $12,000. I know that's not much, but we're going to see how that goes the first year. We're going to match 50% up to $3,000. So if you have a $6,000 project on the front of your building, we're going to match up to, we're going to pay half of it. If your plans meet the guidelines, well, who's going to be part of the committee that decides that? That's something the Revitalization Committee is going to help decide. So we got the facade grant. That's already been passed by City Council. What I'm going to go to them next is in Florence. They have a, kind of a upfit the buildings as far as maintenance, water, plumbing, electrical systems, windows, that kind of thing. They have up to a $30,000 grant in-house. It's very competitive, obviously. We aren't going to do $30,000, but I'm going to ask council to at least the first year to give me 2 for $15,000 apiece to see how that goes. So we are going to hopefully put some money behind this and see where it goes and judge what we're going to do next year and the next year going forward. Because I'll tell you, it's not a one-year thing. I don't know how you're going to define revitalization on Main Street. How I define it is seeing a couple stores put up new facades. Maybe 1 or 2 take advantage of that grant and start upfitting their building. That's how I define success. It's not going to be a rip-roaring Main Street in 2 years. We didn't get that way in 2 years. We aren't going to get out of it in 2 years. All I'm asking and I'm hoping is we kind of stop the bleeding on Main Street. And to do that, you got to have a plan. And plan's going to be what y'all going to set forth. What you're going to do. Glenn, what you want to add?
We need to add that, and when he's not here, Jonathan McLeod, who is the general contractor who sits on this, who's been invited to sit on this committee, he also has a business on Main Street. So he can help not only give us ideas on how to repair some of these buildings, but also can help us with cost estimates, because he does that kind of stuff. And like I said, he has a business there on Main, right beside the pawn shop is where his office is, which is strictly his general construction office is what it is. But he's interested in doing some things. I think he's invested some money on maybe 1 or 2 more properties on Main Street himself that he's trying to buy.
Let me tell you what else we've already done, and it's a big deal. Like I told Rotary Club, is one of the legs on the stool is the preservation income tax credit. Maggie, you chime in here. The city's passed it, which basically means if you have your piece of property is on the books with a tax value of $15,000, and you decide you want to improve that building, invest in that building, and you complete it, now it is valued at $50,000. The city's going to hold your taxes on that building at $15,000. How many years did we decide on that?
We haven't yet.
We haven't yet.
Second reading is Monday.
Okay. At least 8 years, 8 to 10
Well,
years.
it's already 8 years.
Okay.
That was in '08, but now we're looking right when at 10 or 12.
Yeah, I don't think we'll do
10 or
20. I think
10 or
20's too
12.
long, but
Okay.
And then the percentage, which was 50%,
not for the building, on the 20, not on.
The original, I said 20, it was on, I think, the original.
That's what we passed
We
in
had
first
planned
reading.
zoning meeting.
And that's what we passed first
Going
reading
from 8 to 20.
a month ago was up to 20 years, but I just,
That's a long time.
It
Is it
is.
something you can extend in 6 years?
oh, you can change your ordinance.
That's what I'm saying, you
Yeah,
can go back
change
if you
your
wanted to see that it's working.
But I
better.
mean, if you.
You'd have to change it to.
Only those that were a part of it would be grandfathered in.
Gotcha.
You couldn't cut the years off if you already, your ordinance says 20 years and 2 years later, Rhett's invested X number of dollars and he's getting that tax credit, and say, oh, by the way, that's going to change and it's only 10 years, so you're going to lose 10 years. You couldn't do that to those folks. I don't know if it transfers if you settle or not, does it, Maggie?
Within the family.
Within the family, okay.
The state level has it at 50% of what you have to put back into your building. And I call the Archives and History, and they will let us set it at anything we want, but no less than 20%. So that's going to be up to the council to do.
What council is going to do anything we can within means to incentivize people to invest on Main Street. Now let me tell you, you know it, if you look at your tax bill, you got the county, the city, and the school district. You know, hey Alan, you know good and well the least, come on in here. The one you pay the least taxes on is the city, okay, by far. When I look at mine, it's by far. You got a piece of property, value it, the taxes on it from the city is by far the less. We're going to pass it. I've already asked Rodney Berry, I called him up the other day, I had to explain it to him a little bit because he thought they were going to lose revenue. I said, Rodney, it's nothing you're going to lose, you're going to continue to get what you're getting, but going forward, I want to see the county do it. Not only that, I'm going to go to Richard Schaefer and the school board and I'm asking them to do the same thing. So when you talk about the county, the city, and the school district, now to freeze those taxes where they're set now, where the investor doesn't have to worry about that for 8, 10, 12 years, whatever we decide on. That's a big deal for an investor coming in buying property. So that's just something else we're doing. We're going to be as aggressive as we can be on it.
When we did this, I went to the county and they passed it as well, but it's at 8.
So county and Dillon.
Yeah. Since '08, I went to Latta, Lakeview, and the county and us, and each one of them passed it at 8 years.
Well,
It's still at 50%.
we're talking specifically right now in the Dillon Historic District.
Right,
Okay. So the county has done that countywide?
countywide.
Well, we'll go back to them about specifically on the
Okay.
historic district. And the school board, the school superintendent and ask. I can't imagine why they wouldn't, because like I say, you aren't taking anything away from them that they're getting now. Rodney came back and said, let me do an analysis on how I said, Rodney, hold on. We aren't taking any of the taxes away. It's going forward for only those investors that want to reinvest in a piece of property in the historic district. He goes, oh, I understand that. So another thing we're looking at, we're just limited on the things the city can do, is maybe reducing or waiving, I don't know how we could waive it all, but business licenses. Glenn says you won't have much of a expense on connecting to the water sewer lines, but if we do, we can do something with that, maybe something with sanitation. We can't do anything with water and sewer rates because we're tied in what you call an SRF loan that prevents us from doing that. Okay? But all these things are very similar to what Florence does. They just may do it at a little higher level, but I'll tell you, it's not a whole lot higher. A whole lot higher. But I'm going to need you to be involved. I'm going to need you to be active. I need you to make decisions and bring ideas. Like I said, what we're going to do with the council and Benny's office, with the code's office, is put the stuff down, give it to you guys. Y'all give us the feedback on what you think about it, what you think we ought to change. That'll prevent meeting again. Once we get that information, then I'll call the meeting again, or where we want to go on the next step. Are there any questions so far?
Yeah, I got one. Is this committee just for the historic district? I mean, it's called downtown, but if it's
whatever's in
bounces,
the business historic portion.
It encompasses most of all of Main Street and some of the side roads off of Main.
Right, okay.
Well, we're not talking the residential areas that are in the historic district.
not doing.
We're only talking basically from Pope's back to, I guess, the courthouse.
And about a block
And
over
then,
both ways.
Whatever's in the overlay of the historic district.
One other thing we could do, go ahead.
Since we're in that, are we going by the historic district rules, I guess you'd say?
Well,
When we say this committee's gonna make decisions, are we?
there's some things that you still got to tease what our ordinance say from the Bar of Architectural Review, if that's what you're asking.
I can't think of anything else that we'd wanna do outside of that, I'm just asking, you know.
And here lately, some things that we've done, you know, I used the windows at the Methodist Church. You know, we made some changes there to accommodate those type windows because you couldn't find, or it wasn't worth getting the old type windows that were there. You know, had some issues with that in council, and I think the bar finally came to an agreement that we could use certain type of windows.
Saying that, can you use a vinyl window, if there's windows just downtown that need to be replaced?
As long as they meet certain guidelines, am I correct, Meg?
Yes, as long as they look like what you're replacing.
Right.
And that's.
You can't go get a 100-year-old frame,
No.
you know, so if you gotta replace it though, you can replace it with something vinyl, nobody's gonna know unless you go out there and actually touch it, you know, whether it's vinyl or not.
And there's gonna be some things that we're gonna have to do to where the Board of Architectural Review, planning and zoning is gonna have to be involved in some cases, and in this group, to kind of work some things out. Because we don't want to tie people's hands. We don't want to have a bunch of rules and regulations that nobody can adhere to, or can afford to adhere to.
And you know, we've already streamlined that to some extent already.
Yeah.
And we'll continue to streamline that. Because when that came up with the church, you know, frankly, was ridiculous.
I remember seeing it on the council meetings, I don't even know how to particular
But when you come up here, you have a building in the historic district, yeah, you're gonna have a color scheme you gotta use, but we're gonna give you 50 colors or somewhere in that range, okay? It's not that hard.
I've seen them, if you can't pick out a color in that color scheme, you just really, I don't know.
So the bar has
So
its
many.
place. I mean, you know, that they have their place.
Yeah.
Right, you dealt with it when you did your renovations. Was it that tough?
That was a nightmare.
Because that was the beginning of.
Dillon with the lady that was over it? It was good.
I mean, but still, it worked out.
It all worked out.
And it's a learning process that everybody's just gonna have to compromise to some degree. You know, my biggest thing about downtown is the condition of the buildings. Whether they're vacant or not vacant. And we're working on an ordinance that will probably come to planning and zoning at y'all's next meeting.
Let me talk to you about that. One of the things that we're gonna look to initiate, and where this committee gonna have a lot of say in how it's defined, is a maintenance and appearance ordinance. All that simply means is you cannot have something on Main Street that's on the verge of being condemned. We want to get to that business owner before it gets condemned. Because the only arrow we got in our quiver right now to do anything is to condemn a building. But we want to have some way of making the business owner move, the property owner move before it gets to that point. Okay. So who's going to decide what you're going to put in that maintenance and appearance ordinance? Y'all going to have a lot to say about that. That's why I picked it.
You have a lot of absentee ownership.
Not really Main Street, not a whole lot. I mean,
Well,
we got some.
I got one right now that's condemned, we cannot locate it, that we just finally decided to do some things, you know, from a construction standpoint. build a little tunnel in front of the building on the sidewalk, shore it up, because the windows were falling out. We've yet to be able to track the guy down that owns it. It was sold on the tax sale back in October, November. Hopefully, he doesn't redeem it, and the new owner is going to do something with it.
But if he does redeem it, I mean, he's got to do something.
And we do not like to condemn, because you have so many days to do something. If not, either you tear it down or we tear it down. We don't have the manpower equipment to go in the middle of a block to tear down, nor the money, because a lot of times you've got environmental issues that somebody's got to deal with. And we've been down that road. I don't want to do that again.
I can get you a suit next time, though.
But you know, I saw a letter that Clark sends out there, you know, that's the last thing we want to do, is enforce something with a heavy hand. You don't want to do that. A whole bunch more other, this committee and this, you know, the city work with that owner of that property. But there will come a time where you know, you need to present to us, the city, a plan of what your plan is to bring the building back to code. We'll work with that time frame. We'll respond. I'd like to see it where they respond to us. If they ask for more time, I think we would give it. If they don't respond, then it's time to enforce it. Okay. The codes department will enforce it by fine. Then from what Clark's, most of them are like, well, the few that they have will go to court. That's fine. If it goes to court, you know, nobody likes being in court. That's where it could end up. But that's the last thing we want to see. But you got to have some teeth in your ordinance, or none of this is going to get done. None of it. Okay.
If you can, I wanted to speak a little bit about grants.
Last thing, well, there is a sign grant. We're looking at maybe to help them with the signs in some fashion without upsetting our business owners doing the signs. And the last thing on, if somebody does come up and applies for the upfit of building, it applies for the city grant, say if we do pass that, the ultimate decider on who gets that is, we think so far, it's going to be city council. Okay, we don't want to put y'all in that position.
Thank you, Mayor and Lynn. Let me say I'm happy to be here, and it sounds to me like you guys are on the right track as far as everything that the committee is looking to do. Your downtown Main Street commercial historic area is your main focus when you have business, industry, people moving in. You want to have an attractive area. And I rode through Dillon today. It doesn't look that bad, but I'm a hometown girl. But I saw some buildings, I saw some facades and things that, you know, need improving and are, look like a hazard. One of the things, the CDBG program that I work with, that's Community Development Block Grant. One of the programs is a downtown revitalization grant and also a neighborhood revitalization. The downtown commercial revitalization project, it has its focus on the committee, like what's being established here, and the goals that you all want to achieve. You have to have an active organization. You have to have leveraging and partnerships on the local level and with businesses, which is what sounds like is going to be taking place. And you have to keep in mind historic preservation and the rules, regulations that goes along with that. Now, CDBG funds of approximately $500,000 can be applied for. It depends on certain criteria and what you're looking to do and several things, but it's up to me to figure those out once I know what all you want to do. Some of the things that can be done is street lighting and like shrubs and things like that, facades on buildings, furniture, when I say furniture, I'm talking about parking, park benches, seating, that type of thing, green spaces. For instance, if you have a building that maybe is beyond repair, and that building can be taken down, that can be a green space made in there, where people could come and sit and maybe a walkthrough from the main street downtown to a street adjoining or behind. In Darlington, when we did the downtown revitalization, we took some commercial buildings and the owners agreed with this, and they did commercial retail space down and did apartments on top. And so we had a private investor that came in and redid those and rented the apartments. And some of the apartments were based on low to moderate income tenants and some were not. You have to have some handicap apartments as well. But that's something to think about if you want like retail and residential. And then there's several different things, ways that you can look to go. Once you get a better idea of what you're looking for, then we'll know better which way to proceed. Also with the neighborhood revitalization, that encompasses maybe the block over. If you have residential houses in there, you can do multi-activities, like you could do some infrastructure, public safety, maybe some repair on some houses, just different things. But it's a multi-faceted activity grant that helps to bring those neighborhoods closest to your business center or to your downtown up, so that you don't just drive through Main Street and see a really nice downtown and then come over one block and you see slum and blight. You're going to try to keep those neighborhoods closest to it looking well. So, with all of that said, several things would have to be in place, like a master plan or a downtown revitalization survey. Once we look at what all is in place, then we'll know what we would have to do. The next funding round for this type of grant comes up in August and September. And so it depends on what you're looking at, how fast you want to move forward, and where we could go with a grant for CDBG. And with the CDBG grant, we would have just say $500,000 in CDBG funds and then a 10% match from local funds.
Let's just say facade grant, for instance. If we got that through the block grant, the city applies just like we do in any other block grant. And we take the money and distribute it to whichever one that we agree upon who's going to get it to do the facade grants. Am I correct?
That's
And
right.
that's the,
And probably we would need to have work with the owners beforehand to see when we apply for that $500,000, are we going to have those owners right ready to go with, moving forward with it? Because
how does, I mean, since we do a lot of block grants from a water and sewer standpoint, and you can't do the two at a time. Is this part of that? Would that be a separate?
this is a separate program,
So it wouldn't involve?
it wouldn't affect your water sewer infrastructure grants, because this is a separate funding round.
Well, you need to let us know what we need to round up for you. You said something like a survey.
Do we have a master plan? Did we ever do one back in early 2000?
What we did, we completed. So Benny might have something that he's doing.
Or
Now,
a
where's
market
this?
study.
We did that.
We got a market
Market
study
study.
done. We just did that in the last 12 months.
Okay. That may work. How
We're
about
talking about the
comprehensive
hotel?
plan? See, we have a comprehensive
We did
plan.
years ago.
Yeah, we got a conference. We have that market study. Well, actually, the county did the market study.
what we help.
Yeah. We can get a copy of that and kind of look at it and see if, I can't remember how detailed it was with downtown, but I think it was pretty detailed.
We'll get it to you, see if that'll suffice.
Okay. And the establishment of the committee, the market study, and the comprehensive plan, if I could get those right away, then I would be able to more tell you the eligibility of the city as far as applying in this next funding round.
Okay.
If we did not include the surrounding residential neighborhood, let's just say we took that out of the picture, how does that affect us? Because, people don't understand here, the block grant is based on low and moderate income.
Yes.
And it's a qualifier, we've got to qualify this. So if we don't use the residential areas, how are the businesses qualified? Same way we do the other ones?
I think the way it's going to work there is the businesses would have to add in a percentage and give permission. But that's something that we would have to find out. But the neighborhood revitalization grant, that includes some residents and multiple activities, that is separate from the downtown revitalization. They're two separate grants.
All right.
So I'm seeing that the downtown revitalization grant is the way you want to go.
At least.
And maybe sometime later on, look at neighborhood
Neighborhood surrounding,
revitalization. Okay.
Thank you. Wanda's got, in the past, she's gotten things done for Dillon. When she comes in here and tells us this stuff, I take it very seriously, with what she says. With that, I want to open it up to anybody that has any questions. I was told tonight was a welcome meeting only. They won't take much of your time. You will get an email on what we're going to do next, how we're going to go about it next, where we're going to meet next. But at this time, I want to open up to anybody that has any questions or any concerns. Any thoughts, any ideas. Look, ideas are the key. It's your ideas that we're going to need. But don't come here and clam up.
You said he comes into a town and he looks at it. What did you think of it?
Me?
Yes, sir.
I used to come to Dillon a good bit years ago. It's changed a lot. So I actually came in the old way that I used to. Some parts I can tell have been improved just through the businesses and the things that have been added. Some parts are a little more derelict than I remember them. And I'm going to go ride back through and really pay attention to this specific area now and make some notes on that. I live in Darlington. They did some revitalization there. I was on the downtown development board and was actually president of that board in Hartsville, so I'm a lot more familiar with those areas and their models, which is kind of what I sort of bring to the table, I guess, if you will, for the mayor. I think you've got a lot to work with. And if you get the grants done in the appropriate amount of time, and you get the buy-in, from your council and everyone else, I think you've got a really good chance of doing it. My question would be, a lot of people get privatized funding, get grants, and then other people get it as well. Do you guys plan on going after that in any kind of regard, or is it all going to be grant-based?
Honestly, Howard, we would love to have the private funding. Like, I think Florence has over $140 million invested in downtown right now. Now, when I go through Florence, I went there last week on a Sunday, there weren't a soul on Main Street. But I think most of that comes from the Bruce Lee Foundation and Francis Marion University, and derived from most of that comes from that. Yeah. So I guess we will have some private funding. From what I hear, some business owners have calls for people out of town looking to ask them, do they want to sell their building? I hear that. So I think there's some there. But I think they're waiting on stuff like the tax credit issues be resolved, because that's what they base their decision on, is the bottom line. And we don't have that set. I think when we get it set, we'll have, more opportunity for outside interest to come.
So it's not off the table, it's simply not there yet.
It's not there yet.
But it is needed.
Oh, it absolutely. I wouldn't want to go buy, I was talking with the other developer about maybe a coffee shop. I wouldn't want to go buy a building on Main Street right now when the building beside it is falling down.
Absolutely.
I wouldn't do it. Anything else, Maggie? You got all kind of ideas when you call me.
Well, I mean, I've got the two things going that I knew to go, but maybe y'all have some other ones that, things that we can work on. I know Stephanie mentioned that there were other opportunities for funding at the national level.
Yes, there's like tax incentives and tax breaks and things. I don't know if you've looked at it. All you have to do is just look online, and you get, once you put in, like, I think it's 20% of your building, you can deduct so much. But if you just look up, you know, funding and tax breaks and things like that, you can find that if you Google it.
I did, in fact, I just put a new roof on my building, and I did look for that. But if I recall, I think the enhancement of your building has to equal at least, and I may be wrong, at least 50% of the fair market value.
Right,
Which
that's
my
one
roof
of
was $14,000, and the fair market value of my building was probably $55,000, so it didn't.
Right, well, it has to do also with like the number of years you've been in the building, because you get to count off like 20% for the number of years that you've been in the building, so.
Well, I wanted, you know, when I did this, I was going to get Maggie to fill that application out from the federal standpoint and use me as a guinea pig to see how that went, and I still want to do that. If I could go back and
You can go back and apply on the 8%, I mean, on the 8 years.
Yeah, okay, well, we'll do
That
that.
was already in place,
All right.
so.
And one thing I want to say is you said you would not buy a building downtown with the condition of the other buildings. I just bought a building downtown.
Well,
And-
thank
But
you. Yeah, we do.
listen, the reason I bought it is because I knew I could afford to get in at this time. You know, if we get everything beautiful, I might not have been able to afford to get in at that time. So don't think about it.
Now,
Just-
well, when I was looking downtown, I was talking close to where I am, where there
Right.
are 2 or 3 buildings that have been flooded, that haven't been repaired yet with the flood, a condemned building.
Well,
I
got
wouldn't
the
buy
same
one out
reason.
there right now. I'm just gonna be flat honest with you. I wouldn't do it. That's why, you know,
Right.
I'm ready for a change in Dillon.
Right.
Because we all got a stake, whether you own property downtown or not, you live here. You got a stake in downtown. Jackie may not have a building downtown, but she's got a florist. She's got a stake here. Everybody does. And whether you want a property downtown, if you're doing business downtown, you definitely got one, but it doesn't have to be just that to have one. I want it where I want, we can feel more comfortable buying a building downtown, or more comfortable putting money in the building I got
Right,
already.
right.
Because it's been a death spiral of people not fixing these buildings up because they can't get the rent out of them. If they can't get the rent out of them, they aren't going to put the money back into them. So, you know, which one you going to fix first? I mean, the renters, you know, they don't want to come in and rent that with a leaky roof.
Well, I think the ordinance will take care of that. It's gonna take a while for that to come
It's gonna
back
take a
around.
while.
But you know my personal opinion on this, Todd knows, and I could go off right now, and I'm trying not to. But, I personally believe it's up to the building owner, not the renter. It's up to the building owner. I own 2 buildings that face Main Street, and I own another one that faces North MacArthur, and then I rent from Todd in the back alley right there. So I got a real good vested interest in downtown. And to me, it doesn't make any sense as a building owner that you would not take care of your building. We shouldn't have to tell somebody, paint your building. I mean, that to me is absurd, but we're gonna have to. And I think that ordinance to me should be very strong. I've told Todd, if it were me, I own a building downtown, Q's Barbershop is in that building right now. If Q moves out tomorrow, I got 30 days to take that sign down or either paint over it. If I don't do it, fine me $100 a month, every month, until I pay that, I'll fine off, or add it to my taxes at the end of the year. If I don't pay them taxes, the building will be sold to somebody else that will take care of it. So I'm just, to me, that is the bottom line, is your building should be painted at the very least white with a black trim around it, and if there's nothing in the building, it should look like there is something in the building. And that's back to the building owner. Renters are gonna come and go, and once they go, you're not gonna be able to I mean, that's between the building owner and the renter, I guess. If you get a deposit from them and you say, look, when you move out of here, you're gonna take that sign down, they don't take it down, don't give them the deposit back. But it's always gonna fall back on the building owner. They're the ones that own the building. And if you're not gonna take care of it, you're not gonna take care of it. Which to me is absurd, because if you don't take care of it, it's what you just said, you don't get your income. If there's a leak in Q's building and I don't take care of it, I'm going to end up replacing that whole roof, or either he's going to move out and I'm not going to be able to rent it. So now I'm paying taxes on a building that I'm not even getting any income off of. Unless I'm missing something, to me that's absurd. Am I missing something? Am I not taking advantage of some write-offs or something?
That's the way it
Because
should be.
I don't understand that. If you have an income, why would you just give up the income? At any point. And then these buildings wouldn't get to the point where you're talking about right now. It is gonna cost some money on some of these buildings to get them back to where they should be. But if we get that ordinance, a strong ordinance, and I'm fine with a $100 fine, make it $250, I don't care.
And we usually do it by the day.
But get as harsh as you wanna be, because I don't understand that. And I've said this, and I'm working with somebody on a couple buildings downtown right now to get painted. And they're, like Todd said, they're 3 doors down from me. I should be able to sue them for the detriment of my building. Because you're not taking care of yours. It's like you said, if something looks, I don't accept it looks like crap over here, and I'm right beside it, it ain't helping me. It don't matter how much I put into my building, or put up an awning or paint it or whatever. If you're not gonna keep it up, there should be some recourse on that to that person, and which would be in that ordinance, but honestly, sometimes I feel like just taking them to court and just suing them.
Well, it'll come. MacArthur Avenue, where you and I, we all got awnings up.
And those are beautiful.
Every
Beautiful
building
street.
is occupied.
Yep. I think everybody should ride down North MacArthur and look at it. Like Todd said, every building is occupied, everyone has a nice awning on it. That, to me, and I looked at it from an angle across the street where the town clock is and the depot at 6 o'clock at night. If you look at it, that's what you want for downtown, anywhere in America.
But it goes back to who owns the building.
Exactly. It's the
Well,
building owner. And if you don't make them
Building owners
responsible.
did it, even though, I don't know how much money we had in the facade grant.
Every one of them had a grant for those.
But what do we give at the most to each one?
1,500 maybe.
Roger, you were the last
And that
one.
was what I was asking, if you get a grant, how does it, so does the building owner have to put in so much money to get so much money?
Yes.
Is it like a match?
We're gonna match up to 50%, but to a certain dollar.
Right.
But you spend the money, you reimburse.
So if it's a $10,000 project, if it's 10,000 at the limit, y'all would give them 5,000 back.
If that's what.
Whatever the limit is. 8,000, whatever it is.
Well, you talk about the facade grant. The
Right.
facade grant going forward is the city will reimburse you up to 3,000.
Right now. Which to me, look, we painted the backside of the alley back there, and you can ride back there. Unless the wind blows trash up there, and it does, it's clean back there. Each building is painted a different color, it kind of looks like a little Charleston, a little rainbow thing. And I can't remember what it cost, but I applied for that grant and got half my money back. And I'd say, again, to me, that's crazy. Why would you not do that? You're gonna get half your money back.
Which we have not had a lot of people to take it.
No, when I applied for it, nobody had it at that point. Which to me is crazy, I don't understand that.
Well, right now, we have $12,000, and this has been on the books for what, 2 months? Nobody has called. Nobody has asked.
If I could do something in my building, I'd take advantage of it, but honestly,
We've got to do it, and Howard just asked me, looked at me, says, does anybody know about it?
Yeah,
We've got to do a better job of educating
Right.
folks. We can't rely on the newspaper, we can't rely on hometown TVA, we can't rely on Facebook. We've got to.
You gotta go to, you gotta go to.
You have a mailing right downtown, why don't you send a mailing to them?
Well, we got an inventory of most of the downtown business owners, and we will send a letter on that to each one of them.
Look, I'll walk the street and talk to every single one of them. I'll volunteer to do that and take them a flyer and actually talk to them, because I think it's a verbal to verbal thing. This community is no better than the building owners. It don't matter what we do, if the building owners don't buy into it, or we don't have some kind of ordinance to make them buy into it, it's not gonna get any better regardless of what we say.
you got to be, as far as the city and this committee needs to be accommodated to the property owner. And I'll use Dr. Hooker. He came to me one day, he says, why don't y'all just cut those trees, trim those trees on the side of my building? Remember that? Well, I think they cut your trees or trimmed them back. I mean,
The one that's still tearing up the awning's still there.
well, we'll work on that one. But the other ones we got. But it's just.
I got some rail clear for that.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
And some other things that Darlington or Hartsville we've talked about, and Florence we've talked about. And I've always been one, compare apples to apples and not apples to oranges. But each one of those three, and Bennettsville to some place in that, I don't know how much businesses they have that are strong in downtown Bennettsville, but the buildings look good. But they have a downtown association. Every one of them. We don't have that.
Yes.
And that's something that is needed. And we have looked at it. We have talked about it. Many, many, many years ago, back in the 80s, we had a downtown association. It was called Main Street Program. That program still exists today, but it's expensive. What was it, 50,000 maybe?
Main Street USA.
Yeah, to be a part of it. Yeah, if we're gonna spend 50,000, we might as well just give to each business owner X number of dollars and do that. But I think this committee's got to be a part of downtown association.
Well, can we not just like have people, like someone, decide, hey, we want to have a downtown association. Let's make out some letters, send them out to everybody. Do you as a business owner want to be on the downtown association? Blah, 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 blah. Can we do that?
Yes, you can. Y'all can have your own association. The city doesn't have to be the lead agency. You can do that yourselves. Because without one, we're just spinning our wheels to some degree. Because it goes back to the communication thing. Years ago, it seems like 20 years, it probably has been that long, when we did quote-unquote revitalize Main Street through the highway department grants and federal grants, burying some overhead lines, doing some landscaping, putting in new street lights, blah, blah, blah. We did that hoping that, here we are spending X number of dollars, and I forgot it was in the millions. I don't remember what our portion was, but hoping that by doing that, that would do something with the business owners to say, the city's spending some money on the appearance. Maybe I need to do some on my appearance, which it really didn't happen. And then we came with doing the festival downtown instead of on the courthouse grounds and hoping to attract, folks downtown, which it does attract folks downtown. But I don't know how, is it a bother to you when we do Main Street Festival, or does it hurt your businesses?
See new faces.
Yeah, so but my
You
point
might
being
not
is,
sell it that day, but you might get some contacts that you'll sell something.
yeah,
Somebody walk in and say, dang, I didn't know you had this here.
bingo.